just issues that I might have allowed to lie dormant inside, and use it as a means to purge all of these things out of me. So every pain that you see is just a piece of me, a piece of my vulnerability, a piece of my insecurity, a piece of my emotional fabric. Again, I don't paint pictures. Like I feel like it's something deeper than that. I paint my prayer. I feel like I'm able to get in tune to my higher self or my higher being whenever I'm painting. Because I'm quiet. Like I said, I have to go into my artwork like with a humble spirit, like with an honest spirit. That's where I get the whole correlation between that and prayer, because whenever you're praying, you have to come with a humble spirit. You have to come with an honest spirit. That's the way that I come towards my art. And usually with prayer, when you come that way, I feel like you're able to get you're able to receive some type of healing, because you're saying everything that you wouldn't say in the open public. Like a lot of things that I wouldn't say in the open public or to people, I speak it freely through the art. So that's a way of me getting everything out without exposing myself, if that makes sense. So usually I tell the whole entire story or the truth to the art, and whenever anyone sees it, you're able to feel that truth without me exposing myself to you. And then when I say exposing myself to you, exposing myself to your judgment, exposing myself to your biases, all it is art. I take ugly feelings, ugly emotions, and I give them a beautiful face, and then give it to the world to see. I do my red lips last because I had an accident when I did the lips before, like in the middle of the process. I think I could make the lips red in the middle of the process, and it destroyed the rest of the artwork. So whenever I make one major mistake, I make sure that I don't make that mistake twice. So I was like, I'm never going to touch the lips until I'm finished with everything, until I'm like sure about everything. And the reason why the lips are red, again, I was reading a book. This book called The Book of Symbols, just talking about what certain symbols, certain colors mean in art. And one thing they was talking about was the color red. Blood always signifies truth, purity. It signifies some type of spiritual essence. So I always have the lips red because, for one, I want the art to look as if it's speaking truth, but then sometimes I have the red lips dripping as if they're bleeding, but that's just truth dripping from the lips of my artwork. So again, I just do that because the red lips is basically, that's like the icing on the cake. That lets you know that all of this, everything that's on this canvas is made out of truth, and it's dripping from the lips of the piece.
Why do you have some of them dripping? Right? Does that mean that they're not telling the full truth, or there's much of the truth that?
Well, I think it's the latter. For the lips that aren't dripping, it's just the fact that the truth was ready, but then when the lips are dripping, it was so much truth. It was more truth than what I expected. That's what's coming out of it. Like this piece right here, I did this. Do I need to get up or should I? I got nothing. No, yeah, this piece right here. Yeah. This piece right here. I called it. It was like, God so loved the world, He created woman. And I have the lips dripping because when we talk about the creation of man, creation of woman, that was that absolute truth. So as this body is being put together, you see the lips are dripping truth, because before you go into existence, just letting you know that this is made out of truth. So usually it all depends on what I pick, but like whatever feeling I get from the paint, it usually determines on how the lips are going to look.
Tell me the story about your mantra.
The artist comes from, it was an argument that I had with the ex-girlfriend. And at that particular time, when I was painting, I didn't realize the therapeutic benefits from painting. So I was painting more and more and more, and as I was painting more and more, my girlfriend at the time felt like I was cheating on her because I was spending more time painting. I was spending more time doing art than I was, being laid up with her watching reality TV or eating hamburgers and some shit like that. So more or less, we got into a big argument. I was painting, and she came in and she was just like, "Look, enough is enough. I'm tired of playing second to this art. It's either me or the art." And my father always told me, a woman should never ever give a man an ultimatum because they're going to be disappointed every single time. So I actually thought about it, and within that quick second of me thinking about it, I was just like, I could either choose her and stop paying, or I can get rid of her and continue doing what I'm doing and doing the things that I love. So with it, I told her, I choose art. So when I said that, she flipped out. So she was just like, you know, this art is stupid. No one's ever gonna get about it. You know, this shit is stupid. I hope you never succeed. You're not gonna succeed because nobody's gonna like this ugly shit. Just basically trying to say everything mean that she could think of about the art. And I just simply told her, you know, my response, it was just a response. I was like, just go talk your shit to somebody regular. I'm an artist. And it wasn't, I was saying because I was pissed off at it, but then looking back on it, I was basically making my declaration of this is who I am, this is the path that I'm on. If you're with it or you're against it. She was against it, so she had to go. So from there, I'm an artist, it's grown.
What do you mean take your shit to some regular? What's that?
Oh, no, I was saying somebody regular, somebody that's doing that mainstream shit, somebody that's doing something that makes her comfortable. That's somebody that's regular, somebody that stays within their comfort zone, somebody that does something that's not going to make someone mad. You know, you don't want, if someone can't handle it, you just don't do it. Somebody who's living their life for somebody else, that's a regular to me. Somebody who's living life, somebody who want to do what they want to do, particularly do what they love, that's a fucking artist. Fucking artist is just not me per se. Fucking artist is just a person who doesn't give about what nobody says, and they're going to do what they want to do, particularly their dreams, their passion, their craft. That's what they are.
Cue up the next one. He did put his name on it, but the first one was by John Thornton. Yeah.
With hair so beautiful you can style it just like your own. Wow! It's really very straight, magical, and makes it shine. Straightest new just like Can you come to a magic potion and everything needs to stay here in this entire I'm healthy. I'm happy. I'm whole. I'm strong. I'm capable. I'm powerful. I'm intuitive, receptive, and perceptive. I'm loved, loving, and lovable. I speak, think, act, say, believe, and behave in loving ways towards myself and others. I'm sexy as fuck. I'm an incredibly great woman, mother, wife, sister, auntie, cousin, business owner, employer, and employee. I reparent myself in ways that lead to my well-being and health, in ways that heal the child that needed it when I was a child and heals me today. I prioritize myself and treat myself well. I'm important to myself inside of my own life. I'm a money magnet. I attract money with ease and grace. I'm a money magnet. I attract money with effortless ease and grace. All is well in my world and continues to get better and better and better. All is well in my world and continues to get better and better and better. All is well in my world and continues to get better and better and better. Ashe, Ashe, I am healthy, happy, and whole. I am strong, capable, and powerful. What I think about myself matters to me. I am comfortable with myself. When I look in the mirror, I see beauty. When I look in the mirror, I see my mother and we are beautiful. Say it again. When I look in the mirror, I see my mother and we are beautiful. When I look in the mirror, I see my father and we are beautiful. I care deeply about how I speak to myself. My words have power because I do what I say. My words have power because I do what I say. Roll your eyebrows again, right here.
I prioritize myself and treat myself well. 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 I care deeply about how I speak to myself. I care deeply about how I speak to myself. My words have power because I do what I say. My words have power because I do what I say. My words have power because I hear what I say. My words have power because I hear what I say. I am beautiful. 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 I am
just like your own.
Now, it's really very strange, magical, so makes it strange. Waited, just like me. Can you come to a magic lotion, everything?
In case you could take the second one, right, all right.
You want me to click something?
It's up to you. Is there more, do you want to give us a little bit about what's going on here?
I can try. Yeah, you can start with the first one. These works represent a few different series, a few different collections. The first three are works that are direct responses to Octavia Butler's writings. This particular piece, as you can see, is called Oya's Dream. What we see is a young woman reclining in a field. Upon her hip rests a statue that is a tribute to Oya, the Orisha over the marketplace, the Orisha over change, the Orisha over the storm. If you recall from Parable of the Sower, the main character's name is Oya. I don't think that is coincidence in Octavia Butler's writing. That at the beginning of this storm of civilization, the society as we know it, that Oya becomes this champion and this warrior. This work and the following one, again, engage with Octavia Butler's writings, but not as literally as the first image. These two works are from a series called Trapidemia with the subtitle Lit. In the Trapidemia series, I'm engaging with what I refer to in the work as trap bodies, male figures who we might often dismiss or discount by juxtaposing them with works from classic Black literature, Black political theory and concepts. And so in each of these works, you see one of these figures holding various books. And so in these particular works, they are with Parable of the Sower, and the next one is Parable of the Tablets. So these works are from a more recent series called, so you kind of have to look at it to get the full thing, but it's the word they crossed out, and it says, we didn't realize we were seeds. The idea being essentially that it doesn't matter what they think, as long as you know who you are. And so a part of that series, which includes paintings, drawings, and sculptural work, these next two pieces are sculptures that are called Keep What's in My Safe Safe. These are cast resin inkesis inside of a Crown Royal bag that's filled with cowrie shells. And the works, the two works again refer to protection and abundance. The color is red for protection, which is symbolic of Shango, the color yellow for abundance, which is symbolic of Oshun. For the last few years, I've been working on an ongoing series called Louis Knapsack, where I'm holding all the work at. And these are sculptures that are made inside of actual see-through plastic backpacks that are more often than not imposed on young Black people attending public schools. But rather than seeing those devices as a punitive device, I have transformed them into protective devices by filling them with inkesis and cowries and other sorts of vestiges of protection and spiritual power. And so the series gets its name from a line in the T.I. song where he says, Louis Knapsack, where I'm holding all the work at. You know, and we understand the work in that trap etymology to mean one thing, but the work can also be the spiritual work that we've been known to do for as long as we've been. This is another example from that series. This one is called, the subtitle, A Dream Conferred. This one is My Ancestors' Wildest Dreams. And this one is August 11th, 1973. If you're not familiar with that date, that's the quote-unquote date that hip-hop was discovered. So this piece is a tribute to the origins of hip-hop. The following works now from a series called People's Instinctive Travels. These works were inspired by an idea that I have, which I still have, and I'm still trying to figure out if I can actually do this, but I have this wild delusional thought that if I'm able to accurately plot music notes, right, like, you know, on a graph, maybe I can overlay it over a star map and align it, and then you can transport to that place, right? And so thinking about music and Black sonic traditions as a kind of time travel device. And so in People's Instinctive Travels, I've imagined this world of figures who are able to travel through time, through space, based on being able to tune the frequencies on what I call the time travel bags. So you'll see oftentimes they're carrying devices or instruments that allow them to tune to a frequency that allows them to move. But on their dress, they're wearing elements from all of the different places and times that they've been as a part of their ensemble. You may be able to click in on this one again. And this is one of the most recent pieces out of my studio. It's also called My Ancestors' Wildest Dreams, but this was a commission done for Stanford University as a dedication to their new Department of African and African American Studies. You know, it depicts a young woman, again, engaging with Black literature, but, you know, behind her is another stack of just, literary works by masters. And so, yeah, you see the clear backpack again, so there are lots of recurrent themes in my work, but that's what I'm showing.
Yeah, thank you.
So let me introduce the artist to you. Dr. Kwame Baku, Chevalier de l'Ordre des Arts et des Lettres. I'm sure I mispronounced every is an interdisciplinary artist and scholar whose works combine observations on hip-hop, fine art, and popular culture to address concerns around contemporary representations of Black men. Through paintings, performance art, and academic work, Dr. Baku confronts the serial construct of Black masculinity and Black identity, challenging and expanding the reading, performance, and expressions of Blackness. Dr. Baku received his BFA at the Atlanta College of Art in 1997, and an MA and PhD from Emory University in 2017 and 2018, respectively. Dr. Baku exhibits his art worldwide in addition to lectures and speaking engagements at colleges and universities. To my immediate left, Olama Opara is an Atlanta-based writer, director, and interdisciplinary artist whose work explores the interior worlds of Black women through sound, image, and embodied ritual. A native of the American South and of Igbo and Afro-Antillean descent, Opara's film and installation practice seeks to deconstruct mainstream representations of Blackness while affirming ancestral wisdoms, intuitive memory, and emotional inheritance. Currently, Opara is also a doctoral student in the digital media program at Georgia Tech. Last but definitely not least, John Thornton is Principal Academic Professional and Director of Film and Media at the School of Literature, Media, and Communication at Georgia Tech. He received his MFA from the Savannah College of Art and Design. Professor Thornton is an award-winning documentary filmmaker whose work reflects anomalistic stories of strength triumphing over adversity. We all testing our reading skills today. Where the characters compel audiences to take action. He has worked with ABC Family, TLC, HGTV, AXS TV, Medin Studios, Walt Disney Pictures, UPTV, or UpTV, sorry, Student Quarters, From the Root, and Broadcast Management Group on documentary short films, narrative feature films, independent short films, episodic television shows, and reality television shows. John is an active member of the Television Academy of Arts and Sciences, the International Documentary Association, Film Independent, and the Atlanta Film Society. In the School of LMC, he serves as the Director of Film and Media and is a part of the Black Media Studies program. Questions that were generously written by Dr. Susanna Morris. If you left it up to me, I'd be like, what you do over So the first question for any three, in any order which you want to answer, how do you think about the relationship between the different forms that you work in, or the form that you work in? Is there a through line, or do different mediums open up genuinely different possibilities for you?
Say it one more time. One more time.
How do you think about the relationship between the different forms you work in, or the form that you work in? Right? Is there a through line, or do different mediums open up genuinely different possibilities for you as a thinker and as a creative? I added that last part.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll jump in. Because it's a question that's come up for me a lot because I do work across a lot of different mediums.
Can you speak louder?
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
We've had some mic troubles.
Thank you.
How's this? Is this better? All right, so I was just saying that it's a question that's come up for me a lot because I do work across a lot of different mediums. And for me, one of the things that I'm, pretty clear about is that I don't let the idea tell me. I mean, I don't force an idea to do anything. Right? I let the idea kind of tell me what it wants to be. Because sometimes there's an idea that'll come to me that will work fine as a painting, but it doesn't work as a short film. It wouldn't work as a drawing, wouldn't work as a performance piece, right? So I kind of let the idea dictate that to me, and I think that becomes an interesting way to work too, because you don't get locked into like a kind of way of thinking and a way of moving that can limit the ways in which you think, right? So every challenge that is introduced by working through a new form actually goes to benefit and inform the other mediums that I work in. So it's a self-fulfilling feed loop.
Well, for me, if I have an installation that's included with film, they can live separately, just like the nose can smell and the eyes can see, but they're both a part of the face. They're both a part of the body of work that I'm creating. And in my installation, I'm often trying to counteract with what's happening visually. So, for instance, in Somatic Black, there's a piece that goes with the film that you just saw, where you're supposed to walk through braids and beads to incite the memory of being a Black girl with braids and beads. Now, if you never had that experience, that's okay too, but if you have, then it is a modality to transport you, and to redirect memory.
Thank you. I would say if there's a through line in my work and in my practice, it's that I try to lean into the story first and allow me to understand whatever the story is that I want to tell. And then it's in determining what would be the most unique way for the audience to experience that story. So that could be in the short form, that could be in the long form, that could be episodic, that could be whatever. But often it just begins with that. And it's like, I have a catalog of just, I could be, I'm walking around today and I'm like, man, that'd make a great movie. I'm not gonna make it right now, but I may add it to a list of other things that, once I become more inspired and do some more research and figure out what the story is, then it's in determining the method for that. So to me, it really begins with that, and a lot of the things that I do.
Hold on.
Okay.
You'll be first this time. Many artists speak of encountering certain writers at exactly the right moment. When did Butler enter your life, and how would you describe her presence in your work?
Okay, so I'm glad I got this question. I know you prepped me for this, so I got the questions in advance, so no one is it's kind of one of them. And I would say it was probably a Parable of the Sower. I appreciate a lot of her work. Some of it for me personally is hard to just wrestle with. And because of some things that I've dealt with personally, it's hard for me to kind of get really into it. But Parable was really informative. I really connected with Lauren. And what was the other part to your question?
How would you describe her presence in your work?
Okay, so in Parable, the goal was really to help people to connect with what Earthseed was about and what the religion she was trying to, I guess, preach. And so a lot of it you hear about in it is just dealing with change. And change to me as a filmmaker is a constant. You have to go in every day and it's like, okay, this is gonna change, this is gonna change, this is gonna change. And so what I feel like I try to do is embrace it. I feel like a lot of my work is to borrow from the bio, to inspire people to do something with the work that they encounter, to change, to have some sort of change when they come to it. I would say that I am trying to convert people. However, if they are, so be it. That was not intended, but so be it. But yeah, I would say it would definitely be Parable. It was a really beautiful piece, and one that I think, you could see a lot of things that I'm developing that are kind of inspired by.
When did Butler enter your life, and how would you describe her presence in your work?
I was introduced to Octavia Butler. She called out to me. Someone suggested Kindred to me, and I was like, what's this wild seed about? And a book is good when you cry at the beginning and you cry at the end. And as soon as I saw the name Anyanwu, I was like, she's an Igbo woman, and I had, at that time, I had never read anything from an Igbo woman's perspective. And then it was like speculative fiction, and she was in an ancient time, and she was in Onisha, and so that's when I was introduced to her, and then I got addicted. And my connection with that book in particular runs deep. I named my first child Anyanwu, all up and through. Wow, see, I love dolphins, stop playing. But how does she, okay, so my work deals with, essentially I'm trying to reprogram people, right? And I'm trying to help Black women understand that we have the capacity for time travel and that time is not linear. And I learned that through Wild Seed by understanding like the length of time. And I know it's fiction, but for me it wasn't fiction, right? It was a telling of another story from another place. And so I incorporate research and I incorporate history into my work to show people, like, for instance, the film that you just saw, Somatic Black, 3 people on screen, but that's the same person. That's her as a child, her as a grown woman, and her as a growing woman. And so that you can talk to and communicate with yourself in that way. And I made that film for my niece to explain to her what time travel looks like, right? It doesn't always look like, a machine or, whatever. It can be within the body, it can be within the DNA. And just the first time that I ever heard about this DNA talk was through the work of Octavia Butler, so.
What she said. So I think the first Octavia Butler book that I was introduced to was Kindred. And it was one of those books that like I quite literally read in a day. And this was maybe around 2004, 2005 when I first read Kindred. And it just, like her writing style, the stories that she's able to tell, her imagination, the visceral way the words take the form of pictures in your mind, like really struck me. But I really fell in love with Octavia Butler with Fledgling. That's to this day one of my favorite books ever. But I've read pretty much everything that she has written, and I've read pretty much everything that she's written, and the thing that sticks with me and stays with me is the ways in which she complicates our humanity. And not just as Black people, but I think it's equally important that she does complicate Black people in the way that she does. But the way she complicates our humanity, and the way she complicates our relationship to as Alana said, to time, to biology, right? Like the ways in which she gets us to think beyond the limitations that we've imposed on ourselves in this form. And so, for me, Butler has given me the freedom to imagine through my own work and to create worlds that, are not impossible, they just don't exist yet.
Dr. Paku, you walked us through the images that you have of your works. Could you tell us a little bit more about how faithful the finished work is to that original vision that you had when you started creating them?
Yeah, it's interesting because my process starts out. I got to give a big shout out to Andre 3000. I got my Outcast jacket with me today. But years ago, I was driving. I heard Andre 3000, I heard Andre 3000 in an interview. And he was talking about how he keeps a journal where he will jot down phrases or something that he heard or something that happened in a conversation. Even if he can't do anything with it, he just puts it in this book. And then when he gets into the studio and it's time to like write a new verse, he'll flip through the book and then something will jump out at him, and then he'll just kind of build off of that. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And so if anything ever happened to my notes app, I'm lost. I have so many things that I've jotted down, and like when it's time to come up with a new idea, a new project or something like that, I go to that thing first, and then I start to, pull out the ideas. But everything that I do starts out through performance. And so, while I'm known more so for like painting and things like that, I consider myself a performance artist first. And when I have an idea, once I start to visualize what it looks like, I do a photo shoot where I have a photographer come in and document me in performance. I've styled at this point what the characters would look like, the setting, all that kind of stuff like that. And then I go into character. That's when I figure out what the work is going to look like. So that photo shoot begins to inform the rest of the creative process. And from that point, it remains pretty true to what is captured in the photography, because I am trying to tell that story. It's like, I liken my process to like a play. The painting is the final stage performance, when it's in the gallery, but the performance is like, the thing that I have to try to capture and then try to put that on canvas.
KT?
So in terms of the work that you saw, I would say that was a happy accident, because it was part of a larger series. It's called Spaceship and Dope Shit, where we initially wanted to profile artists who were in the cosplay space, artists who were in the comic book space and the like. And we had several people who confirmed initially, and then they backed out at the last minute. And so my wife knew AB and was like, if you could get AB, he's gonna be great. And so I reached out to AB for like maybe 2 months straight. I'm like, listen, man, I wanna come. And he was like, yeah, you can come. And every time we came, we would be out in the parking lot. He wouldn't let us into the studio. And so I had like people with me. We were ready to shoot, and every time they're like, he's not gonna let you in. So one day, I convinced everybody, like, come on, he's gonna, so we're just sitting in the car and we're just topping it up. And I was like, listen, man, I got people, paying these people to come. Can we just come see what you do? And his whole thing was, he was very particular. When he says he paints like his prayers, he means that. He's very particular about his space. So he didn't know how we were gonna respond to his work. And he felt like, if you see it, you might respond like my ex did, and then it's gonna be something. So I was just like, we're just gonna come and look. We're not gonna shoot anything. And so that was a lie. Because when we got out, I was like, whatever you do, don't turn the camera off. Like, we're just gonna roll from the time we get in there. And so that's what we did. We walked in. I was just talking to him around the studio. I saw his mantra on the wall. And I was like, listen, man, like we can make this into a beautiful piece if you trust us. And I said, I tell you what to do, just paint. Just do what you do, and then at some point in the day, I'm gonna start asking you questions. And so that's what he did. He was just in the space painting. We had a conversation while he was painting, and then he sat down naturally. And at that point, he was like, all right, I'm ready to do the interview. I was like, we already got like half of the stuff, but let's go, And so I think for that piece, it was just persistence, but it was just, it was an accident because of other people who were supposed to be a part of it. In general, most of the stuff is intentional. Like, this is the story that I'm hoping to tell in the way, in the format. And it could change, it's fluid. Like, we could go in and say, we wanna document this and we have a plan of how we're gonna do it, but when we get here, things might be different. And so we say, okay, now the story's gonna be about this. Or now we need to get, I don't know, it could be anything. And I love being able to do that because then it frees me up to be more creative. If I just come in and I say it's rigid and like this is what it's gonna be, it never turns out to be something great. And so I think that was, of all of the ones in our whole series, that's probably the best one, though we spent more time with other people. And it was because the other ones were a bit more carefully crafted in a way and curated. People were very kind of protective of what they wanted to say because they knew it was going to go out to the public. Whereas he was more like, all right, you're in my space now, let's just, let's talk. And so I thought that was the way that we wanted to kind of continue. We weren't able to hit that again with other people, but I would say, that's how that came about.
For me, the majority of my work, the majority of the work that I've done has been based on literature. I always start from a book because that's the cornerstone of my life. And it'll come from like a whisper. So I'll remember how like Lilith was mad when she found out they wanted to keep her because she had cancer. Or remember International Suicide Day? Or remember that thing Sula said, and it'll just be a whisper, and then I'll ruminate on it for some time. And I'm currently working on a filmmaking process that is I don't want to say antithesis, but it's a new process that does not go through the same ritual of production that was created by and for white men, which I feel is toxic, especially having worked in the film industry for some time. Everybody's tired and Black women suffer. And there's no space for children. Like there's no space for people who have children or anyone who's younger than, 18. So this process, which I just, told you, was kind of like meditating, ruminating. I walk into the booth, I talk to myself, and then, sounds crazy, right? It's not. And then I'm ready to shoot and I make a call for my people. So I'll just put out on the internet or on Instagram, hey, I'm looking for this kind of woman, or I call on my community because community is a part of the practice. I can't do anything without my community, like without the people that hold me up. And so like the woman that you saw in the film, that's my best friend. She's the one who taught me emotional freedom technique. It's how I build. So everything that I do has come from like years and years of just lived experience, just life, and years of reading and retaining literature, and the partnership between those things.
Oh, I'm gonna open up a Q&A.
Please.
All right, so there are a number of undergraduates in here. I need you to try to impress your professor by asking questions. There are a number of academics in here. I need you to impress your peers by keeping your comment preceding your question to as concise as possible. So with that said, I'm gonna walk around with the microphone and hand it to whoever's ready to talk. Don't be scared. I'm only a big Black man on TV.
Okay. Hi, my name is Victory. I'm like an undergrad in bio, but I was really interested in the Octavia Butler's work because like that was like the first time I could see Black people in sci-fi spaces, and that was really important for me because I don't get introduced to white sci-fi authors as a kid. And so my question was, I read Fledgling and I struggled with it, and I remember Dr. Pinkey, you said like that was one of your favorite works. Like reading it as like a younger person, it was like hard because she is presented as a child with an adult mind, and the relationships with her and I forgot the name of the guy, our love interest. It was very much interesting and peculiar in the way it was structured, and I went to ask like why that work spoke to you specifically and how it is, influence your works as you like continue your journey.
Good question. Thank you for that question. Honestly, after it was some years between like when I first read the book and I read it again. And I remember the first time I read it, I was like, man, this would make such an awesome movie. Right? And then I read it again like a couple years ago and I was like, this would not be. But what I love about A Fledgling is, again, the ways in which Octavia Butler's imagination takes something like vampires and makes it seem real and palatable, right? Like this idea of the, what's the word I'm looking for? The symbiosis, right? Between your grandparent figures and regular human beings. Like the way she explains it, it makes sense, right? Like any other vampire story before that just feels like lore and, horror and all these kinds of things like that, but she made it sound like something like, I get that. And then on top of that, a melanated vampire, right? Like in the ways in which a melanated vampire would be a very distinguished being separate and above, And so then there's also this sort of meta-narrative about Black capability versus white capabilities, right? In the ways in which the power structures, that exist, are dominated by these like white supremacist kind of ideals. And, at the same time, there's this coveting of melanin and Blackness that they don't have, which they understand positions anyone in, who does have that to, be a superior being. You know what I mean? Like there's all of these sort of like layered narratives in the ways in which she tells the story that I find really compelling.
Hi, my name is Camille Branch. I'm a third-year mechanical engineering undergraduate here at Tech. I'm not familiar with this author or her works, but I wanted to ask for anyone who's interested in getting into it, what book would you suggest to hers to be like the first book that you would?
A good question. Yes. You're not too late. Right on time. Right on time.
I'm gonna say Wildly. Yeah, I know what I'm gonna say, but
Why Wildly?
why Wildly? Well, I mean, I told you why. She's Ebo. Right? But it's this, I think it's a great way to be introduced with the discomfort that she often presents, especially like with women being snatched or taken in a way or tricked. She deals with that a lot, and I think it's like it's softer than Kindred. Kindred was a bit much for me. Love it, and I would say Wild Seed. That's the reason.
Whatever you do, don't watch the Hulu series. No, I'm joking. I would agree. Wild Seed, I think, would be a great introduction, but also, really strongly push for Parable of the Sower. Just because of the ways in which it connects to the world that you're actually living in, it's really, really wild.
I am going to recommend that you do watch the Hulu one. It's pretty not great, but it kind of, with respect to the creator, he was not trying to make it as literal as the book. I think he said that in several interviews. It's not that great, it didn't get renewed, but watch it. Parable, I would agree, would be my recommendation. Yeah.
Or the graphic novels.
Yeah, the graphic novel.
And not just because the graphic novelists are here.
Right. Not just because they're here. More questions? You got a couple more minutes?
Right here.
I'm sorry, you're not working on that.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Catherine Sophia Bell. My daughter's looking like don't go on and on. I would love to hear more about the Clear Book Bag series because I have a daughter who's in Savannah Public Schools where they have clear book bags and they offend every orientation toward liberation and education. In me, it's a representation of surveillance and policing and so many different things. So I appreciate this opportunity for me to have a paradigm shift about that through the artwork. So I would love to know if there are prints of that or if there's an exhibit of it, but I would love to hear more about that.
All right, I'm getting my steps, Jerry.
Yeah, so those are actual sculptural objects, so there's no prints of them, but they are, you can acquire them, like you can collect them. And each one is kind of built around a different concept or different idea within Black liberation, Black freedom, Black spirituality. Every backpack, again, has its own Nkisi figure that's embedded in it, along with cowrie shells and prayers and other kinds of, protective measures. But again, it's created as a means of deflecting that kind of surveillance that happens, right? And to shift our kids from seeing themselves as being victims to being empowered through the essence that they carry, not just in the backpack, but also within themselves.
While I'm walking, I just want to add that I don't have the experience of a clear backpack as a school goer, but as a concert goer, everything in that backpack is disposable. So watching you repurpose it, right, with the cowrie shells and Nkisi is actually, it is a paradigm shift.
Hi, my name is Bettina Judd. I'm faculty in African American Studies and History. I have a question about genre and how you grapple with genre and kind of categorization in the sense of like these terms like Afrofuturism, speculative. I don't know, anything along those lines and how you think of your art practice within those kind of encapsulating and perhaps freeing concepts of ways of thinking about how to do Black art that does certain things.
I embrace all of it, and I am open to new definitions because for me, it's the function of the thing. What do you take away after you've seen my work? How does it shift things for you? Where do you go to? So that can be an Afrotrope, it can be Afrofuturism, it can be Black speculative art, however you want to define it. As long as you see it and you take it with you, that's the most important thing for me.
I'm gonna second that emotion, because similarly, I try not to get wrapped up in language. Particularly when we think about the fact that the language that we're actually speaking right now does us a disservice anyway, because we're not able to adequately articulate ourselves in a language that is inherently anti-Black, right? And so what does it mean to try to define yourself through the words, right? Through words, through language in that kind of way. And that's where art comes in as a powerful, powerful weapon and a powerful, powerful tool, right? Because it allows us to connect, to articulate, and to communicate beyond the limitations of language. It doesn't matter what the title is that we give it. It's like Olama says, it becomes what is the function of it? What is it actually doing? That's the thing that's the most important. And I think sometimes we get so caught up and wrapped up in language and trying to defend our territory around language, which is insufficient to begin with, that we lose the momentum of what we're trying to do in the first place.
You got time for one more.
Thanks. I'm Natalie. My question was kind of about when you guys as artists decided to become a person of service, because I feel like Black art isn't just truth, but it's a pillar in our community and kind of a way to put back into us as a community and a piece of education as well. And so I was just wondering if there's a moment in you guys' lives, maybe college, high school, after that you had a different job, if there was a time when you realized like, this is my purpose to serve my community.
Okay, that's a fantastic question. I believe that my purpose was to tell stories. And always was a huge fan of movies. I had an opportunity in undergrad to meet Spike Lee. I went to Clark, Atlanta. He was a student at Morehouse, graduate of Morehouse, but he took courses in film at Clark, Atlanta under Dr. E. And just as a happenstance, I happened to be leaving the Mass Comm building one day. He was coming in one day. I was like, oh my God, this is Spike Lee. And we had a short conversation because he was, heading to take care of business. But I told him how much a lot of his films I just appreciated. And I think if you look at some contemporaries of today, like there's a lot of people who I think have borrowed from the things that he has created. And so his advice to me was just, hey, go ahead and make your movie. Go tell your story and do it in a way that isn't what I do, because my story is totally different from yours. And so I really just appreciate a lot of filmmakers in general, but especially him, especially a lot of his work, because I just studied it and I was like, man, I wish I could just, develop things like the way that he does. So in terms of just serving the community, that's really all I'm about. And I feel like there are so many other voices, so many other stories that can be told, and so many other things that people can also add to the conversation, right? It's a larger conversation. That's just my part of it, right? I just want to say this, and then pass the mic, and someone else is going to add their component to the story, et cetera. We just keep building. But if we don't, I guess that's why I really was inspired to do it. If we don't tell it, then it will never be told. It's a part of my experience in the world. Is something that only I could share. And so if I don't share it, then nobody will ever know it, even if we had the same kind of experience. And so I encourage people to do the same thing, to just go out and make movies and tell stories.
I'm going to try to tell the story as briefly as I can. But I've known I was going to be an artist since I could hold a pencil, like since I was 4 or 5 years old. Like, I've never done anything else. I've never tried to do anything else. I can't really do anything else. I suck at basketball. Don't ask me to play any sports. But I didn't know what that meant. You know what I mean? I didn't know what being an artist meant. And I'll never forget, starting undergrad at the Atlanta College of Art. Very first day, very first class, very first thing that happened is the teacher went up to the board and he wrote, "What is art?" I don't know, you know what I mean? And people started giving their answers and their definitions of what art is, and none of it felt quite like, oh yeah, that's it, And so for the next 3 years, I'm walking around campus with this question floating over my head, like one of those like cartoon bubbles with the rain, you know what I mean? It's just like following me around everywhere. Anyway, as a junior, I'm in my dorm room. The Goody Mob's first album just came out, and they got this song on the album called Guess Who, where each one of the guys talks about the impact of their mother's love and how their mother's love saved their life. That song resonated deeply with me because I lost my own mom when I was 4 years old, you know what I'm saying? But I never had any kind of like conversation with anybody ever, not even my siblings about it. As a result, I ended up making, like inspired by that song and inspired by, what I felt listening to the album, I ended up making this body of work for my senior thesis that was based around the story of losing my mom. And I remember when the exhibition was finally installed and People came from the community to see the show, like, people were breaking down crying, and people were coming up to me and they were like, yo, I was abused as a child. Your work gives me the courage to go and do X. I had an argument with my brother 15 years ago. We haven't spoken since then. Your work makes me want to reach out and do, And I remember standing back again, watching people interact with the work and thinking to myself, this is art. This is what I want to do. I don't want to make pretty pictures. I want to make art that does something, that means something, that moves the needle in the world, that helps people, that heals people. And that's how I discovered my purpose, and I've been on it ever since.
For me, it comes from watching television as a child, because just as much as I read, because I was raised in the library, I watched TV. I was obsessed with story and being transported. But when I watch television, unlike when you read, you create the images. But when you watch TV, you're told the images. And the images that I saw that were supposed to be a reflection of me were like half-truths and whole lies. And I just felt like I needed to change it, but I came across obstacles where people telling me working in the film industry is not a viable source of income, or you're a little black girl, like you can never work in television. Which, as I became older and started working in TV, they weren't fully wrong. It was still, but it was a half-truth still. And so I found myself wanting to show Black women how beautiful that they are, and I started doing hair. And I was a braider for many years. I owned a salon. And that instant transformation, seeing someone walk in and be down, and you can see all the problems and issues on them, and when they leave, it's gone. And they feel good, and they're smiling, and they feel beautiful. You can see that they feel beautiful. I realized I was a healer in that way. And as I'm standing over people's head, doing hair and telling stories, my storytelling was still a part of it. And I just decided one day that it was time to bring everything together. And so from the way that I do everyone's hair on my sets, and I pick out all the clothes on every film that I've made has been made in my home, and that's my healing space. And I bring my community in, and that's how I serve my community as a healer and as a storyteller. And for me, it works because when people watch my films after they do, most often women come to me and we end up doing a slow rock and holding hands and them telling me about something or other. So I know it's working.
I know we're coming up on time, but I've been told that you got one more.
Oh, no, I said it was okay.
You sure? All right, then we don't. I'd like to thank you all for coming, and could you give our panelists a round of applause? Let me not pretend like I know what's gonna happen next. Y'all know something's about to happen. See you at 3:30 for the next session, and thank you again for coming.
in this right here. Actually, since you're closer, John.
Oh. Nah, not really, no. Yeah, no, of course I want to do it. Shoot. I'll definitely do it. I'm just saying. I am, actually. People forget that, I think. I think people forget that.
Like serious artists.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm true. But also, a damn fool, exactly. Yeah. So, I'm a conundrum. You and your hard-ass questions. Thank you.
I'm glad we won that award. It's got there will be a sticker in all the books.
Yeah. They actually they sent out an email about that. Yeah, because that actually moves books. It does. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
All right. So welcome to our final panel of the day. Our keynote conversation from page to panel, adapting Octavia E. Butler's fiction into graphic novels. Are we ready? Yeah. Okay. Again, I'm Susanna Morris, and I'm excited to be in conversation with the critically acclaimed adapters of Kindred, Parable of the Sower, and Parable of the Talents, Damian Duffy and John Jennings. This is fresh off the hot off the presses. Let me be one of the first to congratulate you both on winning the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Literary Work.
It is kind of bad. Yeah, literally like yesterday.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm gonna ask Damien and John a few questions, and then we'll have Q&A from the audience. Does that sound good? Yeah. Okay, let me introduce today's speakers. Damian Duffy is a cartoonist, scholar, writer, curator, lecturer, teacher, and a Glyph Comics, Eisner Comics, Bram Stoker, Hugo Award winning, and #1 New York Times bestselling graphic novel. That's right. He has an MS and a PhD in Library and Information Sciences from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where he teaches courses on computers and culture and social media and global change. His many publications range from academic essays and comics form on new media and learning to art books and about underrepresentation in comics culture, to editorial comics, to graphic novel adaptations of the works of Octavia Butler with his JD2 artist counterpart, John Jennings. Kindred, a graphic novel adaptation, was awarded the 2017 Bram Stoker Award for Superior Achievement in a Graphic Novel, and the 2018 Eisner Comics Award for Best Adaptation from Another Medium. Their follow-up, Parable of the Sower, a graphic novel adaptation, won the 2021 Ignite Award for Best Comics Team and the 2021 Hugo Award for Best Graphic Story or Comic. And then, of course, we know what just happened with Parable of the Talents. The co-editor of the Black Comics Returns art book from the Magnetic Collection at Lion Forge Comics, Damien has given talks and led workshops about comics, art, and education internationally, and we're so happy to have him here. John Jennings is a professor, author, graphic novelist, curator, Harvard Fellow, New York Times bestseller, 2018 Eisner winner, and all-around champion of Black culture. Okay. As professor of media and cultural studies at the University of California at Riverside, Jennings examines the visual culture of race in various media forms, including film, illustrated fiction, and comics and graphic novels. He's also the director of Abrams Comic Arts and Print Metascope, which is super dope, which publishes graphic novels focused on the experiences of people of color. His research interests include the visual culture of hip-hop, Afrofuturism and politics, visual literacy, horror, and the ethnographic, a term he coined, correct? Okay. And speculative design and its applications to visual rhetoric. Jones is co-editor of the 2016 Eisner Award-winning collection, The Black Written Ink, Constructions of Black Identity in Comics and Sequential Art, and co-founder of the Schomburg Center's Black Comic Arts Book Festival. He's also the co-organizer of the MLK's NorCal's Black Comics Arts Festival in San Francisco, and also SoulCon, the Brown and Black Comics Expo at The Ohio State University. Let's give our speakers a round of applause. Generally, I'm in favor of short bios, but these two gentlemen are so amazing that I think it's important to list all the things that they've done. Yeah. Not the other one, I'm just saying they're the keynotes for a reason. Okay. So, take us back to your first encounter with Butler. Was it a particular book or a particular moment in your life? And did you have any sense then that her work would eventually pull you in this direction?
You want to start?
I can start.
You start.
So my first experience was when I was an undergrad in creative writing. I'd written a story that was like first-person narration, and the professor suggested I look at Kindred. And I didn't know what Kindred was about. I had not heard Butler before. And I got out of the library an older edition where the cover is a little more abstract, so the cover doesn't really tell you what it's about. And if you read the book that way, you don't realize the main character, Dana, is Black until the exact moment she realizes that she has traveled back in time to a slave plantation. And just at a time when I was trying to be really serious about like my craft or whatever, that just blew my mind. That was like a genius work of literary creativity I had never come across before. And it still kind of gives me goosebumps when I talk about it. Beyond that though, like, Kindred was a book, it was a book that talked about race in a way that felt honest, and that was an honesty I do not think I'd seen in other works prior. So that meant a lot to me just in general, just because I've always been interested and kind of founded by the way white supremacy works in this country and the way race is discussed and gender and identity, and I don't know, she gave a voice to a lot of the sort of half-formed thoughts I had about those subjects at that time. And, oh yeah, no, I did not know it would pull me in. I mean, I could never have predicted that. But at the same time, when John and I first were trying to adapt Kindred, it did feel like it was of a piece with work we had already been doing with like our Black Comics art books and curating art shows and stuff like that. And yeah, I'll hand it over to John.
So I encountered her work, I want to say like in the early 2000s. I know it was after, I want to say it was like probably in graduate school, I'm thinking, which is ironic to me because I went to Jackson State University, historically Black college. I'm from Mississippi originally, and I had not encountered her work. You know, we talked a lot about the Black classics like Toni Morrison and W.B. Du Bois and the Harlem Renaissance, but there was no like talk of like what we would call like speculative fiction in that particular way. Of course, now we know that a lot of the progenitors of Afrofuturists were writing speculative fiction, but we didn't really talk about it as science fiction or like speculative fiction or things that are like outside of what we would call reality or the norm or what have you. So I came across her work because I was attracted to the cover of Wild Seed, actually, which is my favorite of her works. It was the Wayne Barlow cover, you know the Wayne Barlow cover, the one with like it's Anyanwu and has a zebra head, and there's all these different animals that happen, and it looks like a crown, you know. That's Wayne Barlow's work, and I'm a big Wayne Barlow fan because of my background's in art, obviously, and I'm an illustrator. But I just had never seen anything like that before, and then I wasn't, and it did not prepare me for how like astounding The narrative was. It was just mind blowing to me. And to this day, it's my favorite work. And I don't know, I just had never come across that type of writing, the succinct style that she wrote in, the power of the character, the layers of the characters, how she dealt with like power structures. Yeah, it was just, I was transported. And I had been reading science fiction since I was a kid, like, and horror and all kinds of stuff with my mom. But yeah, when I came across the work, I was just transfixed by it. And I started like becoming a lot more observant of like speculative fiction, Afrofuturism, stuff like that. And I kind of went down that path. Now, did I predict how we would end up like kind of becoming ambassadors of our work through graphic novels? No, I did not predict that. But I did make an image of her for when she passed away, and it was for a faculty art show, and it said Godspeed Wild Seed at the bottom of it. And one of the, and it was like green and brown, right? And there was a chancellor's wife who came to the art show, and she was so moved by, she had never heard of Octavia Butler either, and she came and met with me about it, right? And she was like, she was like, I had never heard of this woman before, And I gifted her the image. And she broke down crying, and then she designed her entire parlor around the image. I was like, and she's now like a diehard Octavia Butler fan, so she's changed it. I was changing. I kind of, like, I went down a tributary. I'm gonna stop talking. There you go. Sorry.
That's why we have you here.
No.
Are the speakers?
Oh, that's why we get to speak. Oh, that's right. Thank you for reminding me about that.
We have kids, so we're used to not being allowed.
Or not being paid attention to.
I want to talk to y'all about collaboration, because it's its own kind of art form, right? So how did you two find each other? Because these beautiful texts are not the first time y'all have collaborated. So how did you two find each other, and what was the conversation like when this project, or these projects, began to first take shape? Was there an immediate shared vision around adapting Butler, or did that have to be built?
Oh, there's so many things. Okay. So how we met. Wow. Okay, so I was teaching at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign in graphic design at the time. This had to be, what, like 2007 or so?
I think it was
2006?
Yeah.
So anybody familiar with Scott McCloud? He created this book called Understanding Comics. It's like the Marshall McLuhan of comics, right? It's a meta comic about comics and how they function. So I brought him to campus, actually. I was actually able to, he's pretty amazing. I was like starstruck. I'm like, oh my God, I love you. Because his book literally like changed the way I looked at like graphic novels, right? And it so happens that at the same time that I brought him to campus, there was this gentleman there named R.C. Harvey, who was known for drawing like these really, really kind of risque like drawings back in the day, right? Sort of, kind of.
Yeah, kind of like.
And this rabbit.
Like cartoon.
Cartoonish, yeah. And but he's also a very talented comics historian, right? Turns out that him and Scott McCloud were like friends, but they all were like adversaries about like what comics are, and so they would always be like just fighting about it, So he invited R.C. Harvey to our breakfast. You take people to breakfast and stuff like that. And I was like, who is this old white dude like arguing with Scott McCloud? I don't understand it. It was kind of hilarious. So then what happens is Damien is taking a class with you had already taken a class with this gentleman named Dan Yesbick, who actually created the first graphic novel class at U of I, but he was a grad student. Right. And so what they did is they double Bogarted the dinner. It was like Scott McCloud invited RC, and RC invited Dan, and Dan invited Damien.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like, so it was, it was like this whole like inside of it. Yeah, and so we just kind of hit it off and started talking about comics. And you came by one of my classes, right? To start with.
Comics class.
Yeah, and then I think we went out, got a burger, and then we discovered that we both love Outkast, and we have very similar political interests, and that's kind of how. You want to add some more to that, because I feel like I'm like missing some pieces.
No, I mean, I guess, I don't know if this is a brag. I was working at the law library at the time. It's right across the street from the art building. And it was my dinner break. I was like, well, I'll just run over, I'll hear the talk. Got to go back to work. I didn't go back to work. I crashed dinner with Scott McCloud. Mm-hmm. And I stand by that choice.
I think it was a good thing.
I think it worked. Yeah, no, I mean, I guess the only other thing to add is soon after that, the two of us, Dan Yesvik and R.C. Harvey, would have our little like comics chat meetup thing
Yeah.
every week, every couple of weeks.
So yeah, breakfast for lunch.
Yeah, breakfast for lunch. Yeah, this little diner. And
Something out of a David Cronenberg, no.
David Lynch movie.
David Lynch movie, yeah, that's what it felt
Some
like.
of the food was a little Cronenberg-y, maybe. Anyway, you guys don't need all this. Okay, so, but that was sort of my first experience having kind of like comics professional or comics critic community. So anyway, yeah, that ended up being a great training ground for us to become the successful comics artists you see before you.
Yeah, don't quit your day job.
No.
No, seriously, no, for real, you can't make no money as a comic book artist. Not in this country. Anyway, so I was thinking about, just how we started working was curatorial work, right? So there was a show out of LA, the Hammer Museum, called Masters of American Comics. And it was like 15 of the greatest comic book artists to ever live. We're talking like, E.C. Segar, who created Popeye, right?
Yeah.
Winsor McCay, Jack Kirby, and no women were in the show. No women were in the show, no people of color that we knew of at the time were in the show.
George Harrison.
Yeah, that's what I said, when we knew of at the time. Anyway, because it was passing for, never mind. Anyway, that came out later. So, yeah, and so we decided to do a show called Out of Sequence, Underrepresented Voices in American Comics. And it just went the other way. It went just like, we had hundreds and hundreds of work. It was at the University of Illinois, at the, what's the name of the museum? The Cranard Art Museum, thank you. And from there we started making comics. We started doing like a lot of gallery comics and stuff like that. And we were always talking about like social issues in our comics. And we ended up making this book called The Whole. And do you want to tell me about how we came across the Kindred thing the first time?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So we had just finished our first graphic novel, The Whole, which is like this crazy black and white horror science fiction
He has a mouth like right here.
thing. But it was very much about a lot of the issues that Butler deals with. We were both huge Butler fans. And I came across just in Publishers Weekly, like a newsletter, that there was an open call for adapting Kindred from Beacon Press, who has the rights to the novel. It was going to be a black and white adaptation. This was like 2009, I think, something like that. And so I called the editor. I'm like, hey, this seems like really line up perfectly with work we're already doing. And the editor's like, great, it's an open call. We just need like 16 finished pages and a full pitch and everything. And you have like a week and a half.
Everybody started chuckling.
Yeah, it was not enough time. So anyway, I right away started working on the script. John was traveling at the time because it was over spring break, and John travels everywhere and talks everywhere. And he was doing that. And
Had 3 talks.
He had 3 talks.
Yeah.
Across the country. And we didn't have the technology we have now back then, like us personally didn't have it. So he would draw bits and pieces of the script and FedEx overnight them to me. Back in Champaign, I would have to take them to Kinko's, if people remember Kinko's.
So it's a copy shop. You remember like Xerox?
Yeah,
No,
it's
no.
like
Photocopy.
It's, anyway, videographs, no. Anyway, so I had to take the work there because they had a big enough scanner, so I went there like every day, scanned it, brought it back, put all the art together in Photoshop, like puzzle pieces, just barely got it done, got it in under the wire, had to go lay down because my eyes hurt from the screen, the desktop computer screen at the time. And what happened?
We failed. We didn't get the job. We failed.
We failed horribly.
Yep.
And we're not bitter now. Yeah, so anyway, it turned out we didn't get the job, a different cartoonist did, and once we got over that initial, sting, we were excited to see the book. We were looking forward to it. And a few years later, we realized it hadn't come out. And how did we find that out?
Well, I was at a convention, the San Diego Comic-Con, and we were basically getting ready to give a talk about one of our curatorial works. And it was sponsored by one of the Black Film Festivals, I think. And Robin Givens was our host for it for some reason. It was pretty cool. She's very nice, actually.
She really didn't seemed to know why she was there.
It's kind of cool.
She was nice about it.
I love that she was surprised at how many people were dressed as Batman. That was pretty cool. Anyway, so while Damien was on his way there, I was actually showing images of projects that we wanted to get published. We went by Abrams Comic Arts, and there was this woman there named Sheila Keenan, fantastic editor, showed her my work and some of the stuff we were doing, and she said, hey, I'm working on a project. I think your work would be perfect for it. Have you ever heard of Octavia Butler? And I was like, yep, sure have, I actually have. And I was like, what project are you trying to do? And she was like, Kindred. And I was like, Kindred? And I remember like the other book never came out from Beacon Press, it never happened. And what happens is that Damien gets there, and I'm telling him about the exchange with Sheila. Then we started to see Sheila all over the place, like for the rest of that weekend. And 5 months later, we're signing a contract to do the book, Yeah, and there's more to that story, but I won't get into it.
Yeah, the longer story is for you. Come find us later.
That was the short version.
That was the short version. But yeah, and then when we were talking about it to begin with, I mean, I think at first, once we got past the overwhelming anxiety of trying to do justice to Octavia E. Butler's legacy, which cannot be overstated, I think we really have always tried to concentrate on using comics to do what comics does best, using the affordances of the medium to tell the story, because we never wanted it to just be for want of a better term, like a dumbed down version of the novel. We just wanted to tell that story, but in the best way comics can.
Yes.
So I think that that in part has been the guiding light with all the work, and then also we just think of Butler as our other collaborator, and we do our best just to honor the spirit of the story. We're finding new ways to tell the same story, but we never want to stray or undercut anything from the original text.
That was a really long answer. I'm so sorry.
It was perfect.
Okay,
we're supposed to speak.
Was this the point of the?
Oh, wait a minute, it's a keynote.
Keynote.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry.
It's very Abbott and Costello.
Sorry.
So I want to piggyback on what y'all have been talking about in terms of the work of adaptation. So when you're adapting a novel, there are lots of small decisions or seemingly small decisions that you have to make, right, as a team. Can you walk us through some of that process? What you decide to keep, what you decide to cut, what you decide to reimagine in purely visual terms that was previously written, all those kinds of choices. So can you walk us through that process and what it demanded or demands of you both, since you all have done this 3 times?
That's a great question. I think you should probably start. I could chime in, but Damien does the heavy lifting of.
Yeah, so we'll do it in the order of which we produce it, I guess. So it starts with me writing a script, and I will honestly with Kindred, I did not know what I was doing. I was just I felt like Butler's over my shoulder, point, what do you, so I was really worried about that. So I tried to kind of lean into the stuff I already knew how to do, which was, particular comics techniques or being a bit experimental with layouts and stuff like that. But I ended up writing a book that would force you to read the original novel, which from a sales perspective, you probably shouldn't do. Sheila Keenan, I have to credit with. She was a great editor, and she got rid of all the kind of hesitation marks that were in my original script, and we got it down to the finished graphic novel, and that was transplanting as much of the story as possible. We have a page count in our contract that we can't go over, so that does require some cuts. Usually with Kindred especially, any sort of discussion because it's a time travel story, but the time travel itself is not exactly the main point. So the mechanics of time travel, any of that stuff, while it is interesting and enriching detail in the prose novel, it's not really necessary to the story in the same way as character development might be or something. So a lot of it is seeing what you can take away and still maintain the essence of the story. And then, yeah, I had another thing I can't think of right now.
How many times you read Kindred?
Oh yeah, that was what it was. 14 times. I've read Kindred 14 times. Parable of Sower, Parable of Talents, I think about the same. Towards the end, it's just like going back and forth and digging into scenes, so I've kind of lost track. And yeah, they're the greatest novels I will never read again, because I don't have any more space. It was 14 times. And then I do a lot of doodling in the books. I like to have a physical copy and just do little cartoon doodles, and that's how I find particular scenes. I'm always looking for visual description, because Butler's pretty sparse with that. So on the rare occasion where she does describe something visual, I'm like, well, we have to do that. She already left it there for us. Yeah, so those are some of the decisions. And then also John and I beforehand will talk sometimes about like overall visual themes. So like color scheme to discuss the time travel in Kindred, for example.
So I was just thinking about the physical trauma of making Kindred. That's why I was like, oh my God, here we go again. So I won't get into the mechanics of like why I only had 8 months to draw the book, Kindred, but I only had 8 months to draw Kindred. And I was trying to figure out like the best way to go about it. I wanted to use a medium that was difficult to work with. So actually like Kindred in particular is drawn with just Sharpies, you know? Sharpies is like really hard to, if you have any artists who work with Sharpies at all, yeah, they bleed real bad, you know, and so they're hard to control, you know. And I wanted to think about like the perfect medium to deal with like the legacies of slavery, the violence and oppression of like those particular spaces in the medium itself. So I started looking at a lot of people who were using media, like for instance, like Kathy Kolwitz, for instance, who did a lot of work with, you know, with the Holocaust, for instance. And she did like printmaking and things of that nature. So I was trying to actually express physically, you know, viscerally, you know, the things that were happening in the story to the characters. While Daniel's doing the reading and trying to figure out what the script is looking like, I'm doing like character designs, right? So I do like, we're doing research on what the space looks like. You know, I would actually like go to slavery like museums and plantations and stuff. Like for instance, the Whitney, for instance, I think it's the Whitney plantation that's in New Orleans, for instance. And actually, the cookhouse is actually based off of in the comic is actually based on one of the slave quarters that we took pictures of. Got to the point where my wife would actually be like, "Hey, we want to go down south. There's a slave museum to go check out, you know, for research." You know, okay. It was my whole way to get me out of the studio, you know. Once I decided I was going to be using, you know, Sharpies for it, like there was a Staples that was going out of business, and she went and bought all these like she basically like bought a ton of like Sharpies, right? And I would work like all day. I would work from like 10 in the morning to like 3 the next morning, you know, until she came and like cut off the lights or whatever. Usually I would see like 3 of her because I'd be high on like fumes, you know, from the Sharpies, you know. The other thing too is that all this life was happening while this was happening, you know, like life was lifing. So I used to draw on my lap on this Bible timeline. It was wrapped up with tape, and I would actually draw on my lap. So a lot of times I would take trips, and I'd just be drawing the whole time while I was like traveling. My wife made me go on vacation in the middle of it, which terrified me. I don't remember where we went to. Actually, we were on a cruise, actually, to somewhere in the Caribbean. I don't know, but she made me go because I think I was working myself to death. And the other thing is that because our deadline was so tight, scanning images was slowing me down. So that's how tight the deadline was. So actually what I discovered is if I stand over the image and take a picture with my iPhone and send it to myself and clean it up on the computer, it would be 72 DPI, but it would be like huge. So when you size it down, it's still tight as far as like the reproduction, right? But that's what jacked my arm up. I actually like have Kindred shoulder, you know, for drawing so much. Yeah, so it's cleaning up, like click, 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 jack my shoulder up. Totally, you know, despaired because we only had 3 months to color it. So, yeah, so that's when I started using, once I stopped crying actually, that's when I started using coloring assistants, you know. So one thing that's really, really crazy about this is that, you know, you don't know what's possible until you have this deadline on you, and the pressure of trying to get this to the publisher, but also to retain the legacy of this amazing woman's work It's a lot. It's a lot. And, you know, one of the things I want to end with is that, you know, I've been doing graphic design for a long time, probably like, man, almost 30 years now, my goodness. And clients always have a change. This is too close, it's the wrong color, it's too tight, can you change the typeface? Y'all always got something y'all want to change. Y'all, you know, the clients. And we turned in Kindred to the estate, to the Butler estate. And they just said, this is Kindred. Isn't that wild? That had never happened to me before. This is Kindred. So anyway, was that a good?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna give you back.
I just want to add to it. I remember, I forget, what was the conference at Clark Atlanta that you came to? I think you were still, was it Planet Deep South? I don't think so. It was before, because Planet Deep South here was in 2020. This was like in 2016 or
Probably so,
2017.
yeah.
And you
Was I still working?
You were still working, and I remember because I know Lisa Yazek is here. We were like sitting next to each other. You were drawing the whole time during the conference and having full-on conversations with people. Sometimes looking at you in your face while drawing. This dude is nuts.
Yeah, it was kind of wild. Yeah. Oh, I did come to another one that was at the. It was a book festival. Because I remember Daniel Jose Older was there.
Yes, I think that.
And I met Sam Delaney there. But I was still drawing. You know what I'm saying? It was crazy.
And also speaks to the market politics of capitalism.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
Teach.
Which Butler writes a lot about in correspondence with other writers. She writes about in her journals and diaries that, you know, it wasn't simply her producing art, but also her being under particular kind of market pressures. So, and that's the thing when you're an artist, you're living within the system, especially if you are not independently wealthy, which most people are not. So there you are, dealing with the 8-month deadline, or Butler dealing with the various comments from her editors, or any one of us, you know, doing that work. So I think it's important to name it.
Thank you. Yeah. It's a brutal medium. It's an unforgiving medium. Comics.
Yeah.
There's nothing scarier than that white piece of paper staring at you. Lord.
There are students from Dr. Wilson's interactive narrative class, and I know some of y'all are thinking about, I see your faces, you're nodding, thinking about these things. Let it not discourage you.
No, it's fun. We had fun making this. It was so fun.
I'll switch from the issue of adaptation, scared me.
We're inspiring you to work really hard.
It's good for you. It builds character, and then you come and break down in front of a group of people.
I have 2 quick questions, quickish,
Okay.
and then I want to open it up for conversation with the audience. So, Butler's work is deeply rooted in her experience as a Black woman, her interior life, her speculative of power and embodiment, and both of you bring different subject positions to the material, no shade. How did you reckon with that distance, and how did it shape the interpretive choices you made, and what did you feel that most acutely in the work?
That's a hard question. Man, that's a Georgia Tech question. Why don't you? You go first, Doc.
All right. Speaking of no shade, I'm white. And maybe so. I used to say that as a joke, but then I realized some people, like, even looking at me, were like, well, I have cousins who are like, so just to put the white cis hetero male. And I mean, like, a lot of the work I've done with John, or just curatorial or academic, I've ended up being in spaces where there's like not a lot of white people. And I've always found that to be valuable, because I hate white people. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't want to get fired.
It was a joke, and we move on. That was like a white privilege thing there.
I know,
right? Anyway, you said keep it short. I'm doing great. But all which is to say,
I'm sorry. Please continue.
I'm trying. All of which is to say, working on Butler's work, I'm like very much aware of it. I am. I know I'm holding it together well, but I'm pretty anxious, kind of neurotic dude, and so it's always like front of mind, like, am I doing this correctly? And can I even understand what correct means? And at a certain point, I just sort of have to trust, like, one, the work, that I've internalized the work enough that I understand the text and subtext enough that I am, functioning as a conduit of that, using my own knowledge and skills in comics to bring Butler's work forward, and not like put myself forward. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is just relying on collaborators like Professor James, to my left here, and our editor, Taneri Du, was kind enough to be like a reader on Parallel Sower and Parallel of Talents. During Kindred, I know John was showing work in progress, to like Media Core Forward and Al Hopkinson. And yeah, I guess just sort of checking in with other people and not just trying to keep myself out of the way.
How you steal my answer? I was gonna say, one of the things I want to do was stay out of the way. You totally stole it. Yes.
Would you say I colonized it?
Whoa, no, I didn't say you colonized it.
I'm sorry. I was just joking. It was a joke. I'm gonna shut up. I know. I'm sorry.
We do actually, obviously, we've known each other for a long time.
Yes.
So, there, besides my little boy Jackson, the other love of my life is Black women. Just from like from everything, So that's where I start. That's where I start. I was raised by my grandmother and my mom, deep in the heart of Mississippi, and there's an eternal reverence for y'all, and I hope that shows in the work that we do, So that's where we start from, is love. So, and it's very, very difficult work, and I wish she was here. Anyway, so yeah, getting out of the way is a really big part of it, and to put together the pieces of what she left for us, and to actually like really connect with what she was trying to get across around how power works, around how romance works, about like all the little things about the work that made her so special. That's how you do the work. And the joking around and stuff, the shit that we do, it's because we play in the dark all the time. That's actually what we do. A conjure man to play in the dark.
Thank you. And
Stop making me cry.
How did I do that? I'm a very sensitive man, and I say that as a wonderful.
I'm sorry.
I've cried many times, and I appreciate that.
Don't be telling them that.
I would cry, but I'm dead.
And today is, as I mentioned at the start of the symposium, 20 years today from Butler's death. And I remember being a graduate student at Emory and going to the mailroom and folks just talking and people being like, oh my God, did you hear? Octavia Butler died. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
Shattered.
She's a young woman. How old is she? Didn't she just come out with a book? And I felt absolutely gutted. And I'm not her kin. I have actually never met her. I never got to meet her. But she's so important. She's so important of a figure. She shaped so many of our lives. And so of course we can laugh and be irreverent about her work because also she had a wicked sense of humor, for sure. But this is also a vocation, and which is why I wanted y'all to be the keynotes, because I know the amount of work that you've put in. I remember speaking to you, Damien, when I was writing my own book, and you saying, I read Kindred a dozen times, like 14 times. I read all these other books dozens of times because I'm committed to doing the work, right? And all the folks who showed up today to really amplify and celebrate Octavia's life. It's a huge deal. And I hope if she is paying attention to the ancestral plane and she's like, all right, then, good job. A final question before I open it up to the audience. The work that John Thornton and Kenitra Brooks and I are doing with our Merlin grant is thinking about Butler's work and climate change, climate catastrophe, and the ways in which Black folk use diasporic practices, so whether it's conjure medicine, medicinal gardens, Black grocery stores, things of that nature, to using our agency to combat some of these issues and banding together and using our collectivity to fight these structures of power, right? The fact that oftentimes when we're thinking of climate catastrophe, it affects people of color, Black folk in particular, in singular ways, right? Whether you live in an urban area, and that means that because of climate change, your neighborhood is several degrees warmer than the suburbs, or if you live in a rural area, you might be living in food apartheid.
Yep.
The food desert is not even strong enough for the term. There's so many ways in which climate catastrophe disproportionately affects Black folk. And this is something that Butler was deeply concerned with, right? Her works are saturated with climate catastrophe, drought, fire, social collapse. And the protagonists are almost always people who have been made the most vulnerable by these conditions. So my final question for y'all before I open it up is, as you adapted the material, did its resonance with our current moment feel like an opportunity, a responsibility, or some kind of complicated version of both?
You take it first, and then I'm gonna give you that first.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Like, I tend towards responsibility. I mean, like, part of the reason, so Kindred, the project kind of came back to us. And it did well enough where they asked us what we wanted to do next. And we on purpose chose Parallel Solar, Parallel Times, in part because it was, 2017, and election had just happened. It's like, oh, this is literally where we're headed. So yeah, the necessity, like, her prescience, and the point of her prescience, as you were saying earlier, it's not that she was a prophet, she was paying attention. And if we, through doing this graphic novel, can in some small way help more people pay attention, I guess that's where I feel like the most responsibility or the most necessity of the work. Because really, like, at the end of the day, I just want to do work that is of use to somebody. And I think that's another reason I've always been drawn to Butler's work, because she's very much, this is work for doing. So that's how I think. Also, I had to get off social media and not look at the news for quite a while working on these, just because it's a surreal experience to feel like the fiction you're working on is documentary, or is becoming documentary.
Yeah, to kind of echo what Damien's saying, I mean, I was hoping to work on Wild Seed next, honestly. Hopefully. We wanted to do Wild Seed next. That's what we wanted to do.
We want to.
I want to do it. Yeah, we want to do it. I told
not them, but like tell the people.
I've already done that too.
Well, yeah, I guess we did. Anyway.
So, like I was saying, when we, it is a responsibility, The work that we've always done with comics has been to talk about social issues, to talk about identity politics, to talk about different modes of power, oppression, white supremacy, the whole piece. It's always been at the end of it, whether it's political satire or curatorial work. That's what we've always done, as a duo. And when we saw that what was happening in the real world, in the really real world, we decided to take on that duology, despite knowing how dark and how scary and how traumatizing it is, And for myself personally, whenever I think about the work that I'm making, whether it's teaching, which is also an art, by the way, and I've been doing it since I was like 27, actually. And I think about two things. One is, who's going to take the weight? Second thing is, what kind of ancestor do I want to be? Those are two things I think about constantly. And I think Damien has a similar, ethos. That's why we get along so well, And I think that most of the work that we do is extremely intentional, you know, and seeing those connections in Butler's work with some of the things that we were resonating with, yeah, we had no choice, honestly, we couldn't not do the parable duology. That's how I feel about it. And I mean, we can do Wowsy. I mean, me too. I want it. Yeah. Let's do it.
Just to like really quick go along with that, like another reason I felt kind of called to do the parables next was because I couldn't finish it the first time I read it. I got like maybe 3 chapters in. I was like, this is too real. And especially kind of going along with what John's saying about like what ancestor do you want to be. My son was born when our first graphic novel came out. My daughter was born when we were getting the contract for Kindred. John's son was born. Were we even done yet? We weren't even done yet.
There's pictures of me inking and coloring the book with Jackson in my lap.
Yeah.
But he's like right there, I'm like,
So like in a very real and visceral way, like you see the future in a much different way than, you know, just a science fiction future. And just the reality of that, it is a weight you carry. And why am I gonna cry? I didn't even.
It's okay.
Why did you do that?
I'm sorry.
No, I just. Yeah, I wish Butler was here.
Yeah.
I wish she could help. I mean, she is helping, of course, but anyway, sorry, that went off the rails.
I mean, it's an emotional piece, right?
It's an emotional piece.
And there's pieces of in those books, like, you know.
Absolutely, and we bring our whole selves to the work. As I tell my students, and some of y'all are in here, we all have a perspective, a point of view, and we don't have to be neutral to experience the work, right? As long as you say what your point of view and your perspective is, right, and your audience understands what that is, it's okay to be real. We should be. Can we give these wonderful, dynamic, award-winning authors some time to ask questions? So, audience members, you have questions, and I'll come up. Yeah, you want to go ahead? Can we take the microphone? Sure, that's wonderful. Any questions?
$50 a question. I'm just kidding.
Or they're paying us.
They're paying us.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm just kidding. She was first though. She was. Never mind. I'm side seat driving.
So I've never read the Kindred series, but I'm excited to. It's on read list now. And I saw a student's poster addressing this, and I was wondering if it was a conscious choice to coordinate the colors of clothing or backgrounds with autonomy and freedom or constraints in oppression.
Yeah,
the sepia tones and all that.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of.
Thank you for that question.
So, you know, one of the things that we think about, and we talk about this often, is like when you're doing comics, if you want to look at like movies or films as an analog, like color is kind of like the soundtrack to the movie, so to speak, right? And a lot of times when you do like time travel narratives, the present will be in full color, and the past will be like muted or gray or like sepia tone or something like that. It's off, you know, that kind of thing. One of the things that we noticed immediately is that when Dana would travel back to slavery time, you know, to Maryland, she was talking about like how vibrant it was, how beautiful it was, how like, you know, bright it was. So we decided to make the past in full color to kind of denote that it's not that far away. It's actually, and the other thing, one of the most horrific things about Kindred, I'm sorry, you okay?
No, I know what you're gonna say.
Is that the more and more that she traveled back into the past, the more familiar it was. That's horrific, right? That she was like, oh, I'm home. Like, no, you're not. You're actually you're on a plantation. Get yourself together. The other thing that was really interesting is that, and there's a lot of stuff about color. The only time that the term kindred is used is when Dana is describing her relationship with her husband, Kevin, right? But the other thing, though, is that she has blood ties with all these different people, right? So what I did to actually get that tone from the past, or from like the double past, if you think about the 70s, is like samples of like bruises. So I actually did like color, so I would go and look at bruises, and I would actually sample colors from like, you know, lacerations and dry blood. So it has just kind of feel to it. So that's another thing. So that was actually like, it permeates the book. You want to talk about the Barry Lyndon thing? Go ahead. You know, or the Hank Blue thing.
Oh, yeah, well, I was going to mention the Hank Blue thing.
Yeah, you go ahead.
It was your thing.
No, you don't know.
Okay, well, no, just because
I want to share.
I had the opportunity to see the poster you're talking about.
I didn't see it.
And yeah, so I was going to say. But it was looking at how Dana, Alice, and what's the white lady's name? Margaret, thank you. How they were all dressed in like blue and sort of dresses, and they were looking at the symbolism of like blue representing power. And I got to sound all smart and be like, actually, that's Hank Blue, which John chose, that particular color from South Carolina, and it's used to, is it ward off spirits or?
Yeah, trick them, off, yeah.
Because we thought about, I mean, Kindred is very much a Gothic story, and we started thinking about it also as a ghost story. And Dana is sort of a ghost in her own past through the time travel. So that color, in addition to sort of talking about authority, is also talking about this kind of ghostly haunting of the past, or how the past always haunts us.
Yeah. The last thing that I thought, I'm sorry. Last thing was really, really great was that we enjoyed as far as like the coloring goes, is that Damon told me about this movie called Barry Lyndon by
Stanley
Kubrick. And the entire film is actually filmed with candles and with like, you know, oil lamps and stuff like that. So, and he, of course, because Kubrick, he built a camera that actually used low light to do that. It's a beautiful film, actually. But what happens is, it's an orangey kind of, like an ochre kind of feel to it, you know? And so when you look at like the interiors, they're all like this ochre, you know, it's at night. But when you go outside, it's purple. Because if you look at the color wheel, the antithesis of like, or the complementary color to a gold is a purple, you know. So it was like a lot of color theory, a lot of thought about the color symbolism in it. And it was actually one of the most, it helped us get away from the trauma a little bit, to just kind of think about it in systems, you know, yeah.
So I'd like to know your relationship to AI as it relates to creativity, and separately, give advice to dabblers. Dabblers in Octavia Butler, dabblers in art and creativity, just dabblers of things, the dabblers among us.
AI,
to say.
you mean ancestral intelligence, is that?
No.
I'm just being silly.
What is it?
Allen Iverson?
Allen Iverson. Yeah, I don't traffic in AI with the work. So it's, you know, I'm aware of it, you know, but you know, I'm classically trained artist, so you know, I make art. I'm stared, drawn naked people, you know. Yeah, so that's the thing, is like, you know, so I'm aware of it. I think it's definitely here, but we have to actually be. I'm more concerned about, honestly, what it does to natural resources. Honestly, you know what I'm saying? Like all those little, like David Chappelle as baby, that's hilarious to look at. But you know, what water source is being compromised by that? You know, that's what I'm really kind of like worried about more so. I don't know. I mean, I think you start off dabbling. I don't know what advice I could give you. I think like follow your bliss is always a good thing. You know, if you're into sketching or if you're into like looking at art, you know, go to museums, copy people as well, trace things. You know, how you start. You know, and before you know it, you start to. It's like writing. You know, like Stephen King used to write like H.P. Lovecraft. He used to write like other people that he liked. And what happens is, you start to like create your own style. And a style is a system of decisions, you know?
Say that again.
I said a style is a system of decisions. Yeah. Yeah, and so in art is like you have like everybody, what's the truth? You know, I was an art teacher once, you know? So the other thing is that to remember is that, you know, sometimes those decisions are because of the limitations of the medium. Sometimes it's because of the symbolism you're trying to get across in the story. And sometimes it's like the deadline, you know? And sometimes and if you're very lucky, you know, they meet in the middle and you make something that's yours, you know? That makes sense?
Okay. Is there another hand, Dr. Wilson?
Yeah, I have a question, and I can just kind of rip off of what you just said. Can everybody hear? So you said that style is a system of decision. So my class is here, interactive narrative, and one of the projects that they're working on over the next 7 weeks is they are taking a book, a novel, a game, and they're remixing, adapting it to a new form, that form being an interactive narrative. And
That's
I'm
cool.
letting them to decide what they want that form to be. And so part of their task this week was to come to class prepared to say what that title is, what that thing is they're going to remix, so that we can begin talking through the way in which we integrate immersion, the way that we integrate agency, and all of those different affordances that you're talking about.
Yep.
Can you talk about process a little bit more specifically? You talked about how you script and you illustrate.
There's not always a time. It's not.
Okay, can you talk through some of those decisions that you all are making that make up that system, that can be translated to them for the next 7 weeks? Because they too have a deadline. They don't have 8 months.
I mean, 8 months was not enough. Just so you know.
Yeah, 8 months is ridiculous, but.
I'm ridiculous.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. In terms of, I guess, decision-making or kind of the power of not just deadlines, but boundaries, I had a much easier time technically adapting Parallel Sober and Parallel to Talents, because I found an interview with this writer, Alan Moore, who's kind of famous comic writer, and he said he would limit the words to 240 words per page. And I really needed that hard sort of boundary to make sure I'm leaving enough room for John's drawings, because it's a comic, you need the drawings. So like sort of finding that and just being like, all right, so that's the rule. And so I would type out what needed to happen in the panel. It's kind of a screenplay-ish format. And I would, put in the dialogue, and then I would see what the word count was, and I just kept like deleting and shortening until I got to whatever it needed to be. So like 6 panels, 40 words per panel, 5 panels. So like there was math involved, and I wasn't expecting that, but it made it so much easier, just because there were some structures in place. And I think that's one of the real values of learning that gets overlooked, that is kind of invisible, that being in school, being in a class, having rules, having deadlines, it can push you to make work. And you kind of need that. So you need something solid to push off of. And I also want to mention back to AI. I think the notion of AI is powerful. I think it could be used to great effect. Like there's already advances in medical science, early detection of breast cancer and stuff. I completely understand doing that. The AI slop online though just feels like capitalism eating itself, and this is just what it's excreting, if that makes sense. Kind of a gross metaphor, but I don't know, maybe appropriate. So I think in terms of decisions overall, even the decision to engage with AI or how you engage with AI, I guess I'm trying to say I am worried that AI takes away choice, because it skips all those steps. And like I'm saying, the boundaries that you're setting for your students, the boundaries that you're having to deal with and probably complaining about, because nobody likes deadlines, we just need them. All of that forces you to do things that may be uncomfortable or slow. And dabbling, I think the same thing. Like sometimes it's very uncomfortable because you're like, in your head it's good, but on the paper it's bad, right? But all of that is recognizing that as part of the process and using that as just stepping stones to the next thing you're going to do, the next choice, the next programming choice, interactive choice, whatever. I think that's important. Hopefully that makes sense.
So to some of those things, as far as like dabbling again, I mean, I have to go back to your question. I always, ask my students, like, how do you throw the perfect punch? How do you throw the perfect punch? Is you punch a lot, you don't ever see my failures. You know, you throw a lot of punches to become a master puncher, you know? Yeah, and I think that we don't like to fail, but failure is necessary, you know, to kind of, and what I like about like school settings is that it's a controlled, like safe failure, you know, because you can get feedback from your peers, you can get feedback from your professors. Very useful space. And sometimes it's uncomfortable because you're putting your soul into something and you're literally putting it on the wall and letting people look at it, you know. Yeah. But, you know, as Baldwin says, you know, artists are here to disturb the peace. And you have to learn how to do that, right? As far as like translation of media, I mean, both Damien and I are artists and writers, and you know, both of us when we met were already making, you know, independent comics by ourselves. You know, we just saw the strengths of collaborating, you know, and understanding each other's processes. I think if you're doing translations, I mean, you literally are taking one particular language and making it function in another way, right? So understanding the affordances of both media that you're working in, I think is very important, the histories of those media. There are certain things that poetry or like prose do better than comics, and there's certain things that comics do better than prose, you know? Study bad examples, like Ang Lee's Hulk. I know you like it more than I do. I don't like Ang Lee's Hulk though, because we could, yeah,
It was a big swing.
It was a big old swing. Yeah, it was. But, you know, I didn't think that Ang Lee understood the medium of comics that well, you know, and what it's good at doing, and what it's not so good at doing. So I think that's part of it too, is like boundaries, definitely, how you're doing problem solving, but also understanding like what the limitations of all the media are. Does that make sense? Okay.
And also, the other thing you asked about process, or speaking more about process, the sort of assembly line approach we take with these books
It's
is
very
unique to
different.
these books.
Yeah.
Because we have like different sort of regime, like editorial regimes, and like the estate needs to sign off on different parts. But when we're doing our own work, we try to be more fluid and sometimes overlapping, just so there's, you know, space for happy accidents, improvisation, and sort of, you know, the magic of collaboration where the sum is greater than the parts. But yeah, so overall, I think it's the story first is kind of how we collaborate, is we look at the story, what are the material constraints, what are the time constraints, what are we trying to say, and then however best to do that, we try to, you know, meet each other halfway and figure that out.
Okay, one final question for the classes for you in the back there.
So earlier you talked about the image on my page before you started. So how do you get over that hump and actually start getting things onto the page? And the other kind of next question. I guess the question is, how much of your work is a literal interpretation of what is on the page versus a visual representation of the themes?
That's Case, he's my student.
Go Case, go Case, go Case, go Case. All right, so first of all, so it was, that's an interesting question. So for me, you know, as an artist, when I look at, when I close my eyes, I see images, you know? You ever seen a bear like hunting for fish? You know, just watching them stream, snatches a fish up. That's how my head works when I look at images, you know? And they race constantly. Same thing with stories, actually. I don't have like writer's block, I have the opposite, you know? So it's really kind of maddening in some ways. And so what ends up happening is I see these images flashing, pew, 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 all the way, and I snatch one, right? And I try to catch it, you know? That's why images look that way. They try to catch the energy that I see in the image on the page immediately. What's really wild though is because of like years and years of practice, you know, because I've been doing this for a long time. I can see the entire image finished, you know, and I know from like a few marks that it's wrong, and I throw it away. You ever seen people do that? Like, nope, it's not right, not right. There's a lot of like crumpled up pages on my floor. There's a lot of images you'll never see because they're terrible, because they were the wrong ones, you know what I'm saying? So, but you gotta start, because As soon as you start putting a mark on that white space, it starts to activate. It becomes something else. It starts to actually like translate into an expression, you know. But through time and practice, you start to see it in its totality, you know, on that page. Now, me, I tend to think more symbolically about things because one of the things I love about comics, I think we both love about comics, is they speak in these surreal, like symbolic ways. You know, there's a sense of like there's a dreamlike quality to comics that I think that we both enjoy doing, and so I tend to go towards like more of a less didactic representation and something that's a little bit more an analog or like a symbolic representation. One thing I love about comics is that everything on the page has the potential to tell a story. From the spaces between the gutters, to the shape of the gutters, to the juxtaposition of things, the color schemes, the lettering, which by the way, Damien also does our lettering, the sound effects, you know, everything has, it could be a sign or a symbol that can carry meaning, you know. Yeah, and I think it's just it's a very misunderstood medium, you know, and I think that everybody should make comics at least once to see what it feels like, you know. It's a really amazing way to tell a story. It's very grueling, but also it's rewarding when you can figure out how to capture the human essence in the images. But yeah, I make a lot of mistakes, man. You know, I really do. Now, working in Procreate has been very helpful because one of the things I learned is that maybe I don't need to be doing 7, because you know, Kindred is like over almost 800 drawings. You know, it's almost 800 drawings. You know, that were assembled, right? So I got really smart. I started working in teams, you know, and I started also like working on iPad, you know, with Procreate. So now I work in Procreate, and that's a little bit easier, you know, because as far as like just thinking about like what that initial image looks like, you know, that's helped a great deal to me. And you can work in layers and things of that nature. So yeah, I hope that was a decent answer. You know, it was a great question.
That was a decent answer. Good job.
All right, do what I can.
I don't have much. No, I do, or I have in the past had writer's block, and like, you want there to be a trick, you know? You want there to be like, oh, I just have to do this thing, and there it isn't. You start writing, you start drawing. There's this cartoonist, Linda Berry, who has some books about like how to make comics and stuff.
I love her.
And she talks about like having these exercises where if you can't think of something to write, just start writing the alphabet, because at least you're getting the muscle going. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, like the blank page is just a portal to this conversation. You're kind of talking to yourself, but you're also just sort of talking to the work or the image world or whatever. But you can't have a conversation if you don't start talking.
That's a great place to end.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for thank you for accepting the invitation from me, also from Octavia, doing this wonderful work.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir, it's been an honor.
This has been a wonderful day. Thank you to all of you for attending. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you for the art installation. Thank you to Interactive Narrative, Dr. Wilson, all the folks who came, all my colleagues from the School of LMC and from Georgia Tech more generally, from around the city. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you to my ASL interpreters. Thank you to my partner in section. Thank you so much. Y'all have been amazing. Big shouts out to John Gordon for taking and live streaming this and being a thought partner in all of this. Special thanks to people on cover for being a thought partner. To my graduate students around my park, Catherine Bennett, and to Cheyenne Simonette. Y'all are amazing. Take any food that you see that's here, that's not nailed down.
Please hydrate.
Take all your stuff with you because we're finna pack up. And keep an eye out. I have